Welcome everyone. Friday is live at 5, but a little bit early. It's 3 o'clock. I again wanted to do it earlier this week because I wanted to go to the Small Work Show in Washington, Iowa at Art Domestique at 5:30. So if you're near Washington, Iowa, definitely go and see it. There's some great work there. If you're not near Washington, Iowa, turn this off, get in the car, and go. So, this week, I wanted to treat, again, the wet paper, soaked paper approach to watercolor. And I wanted to try this lovely subject of a riverboat excursion, the Twilight. Here it is. I saw it about a month ago, parked in Dubuque in the ice harbor. So we've got a very simple color scheme here. It's basically blue and yellow-orange, and colors that you can create from that. So we can use a very simple palette of a yellow ochre, ultramarine blue, or maybe some of the other blues, and maybe a red iron oxide, just to possibly some alizarin equivalent like quinacridone gold. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare the paper. So hi, Michael. Michael will be having work there at the Small Work Show at Art Domestique. So I am wetting this piece of paper with my hockey brush. I'm sorry to my British friends that call it a hake. That is not the correct term. It is a hockey brush. Hake is a fish, a very delicious fish. So I'm wetting the back of the paper very thoroughly. This is an 11 by 15 sheet of Hanamula rough. It's supposed to be 140 pounds. It feels a little bit lighter than Saunders' 140-pound rough. I'm starting to think about those Volkswagen tailpipe emissions. No offense, Hanamula. Now I'm wetting the front of the paper. And I'm sticking it basically to a piece of board here that has been shellacked. You could use anything that's essentially waterproof. It's kind of adhering by itself. It doesn't really need any tape. Some people don't use tape. The table is at a 45-degree angle, so the water is running downhill. I'm going to take the roll of paper towels and get the excess moisture off the surface. And then I'm going to blot the moisture around the edges. And then I'm going to tape it to the edge, but not across the edge. So essentially it is being held at the four corners. I'm really enjoying learning how to use the wet paper because it seems to afford me some advantages that I don't normally have when I work on a dry sheet of paper. I'm not sure yet how it will work outside, but heck, it's worth trying. Now, there it is. I'm going to get the palette open here. Again, like I say, I'm going to use a very simple palette of basically a red, yellow, and a blue. The yellow will be yellow ochre. The red, I'll have two reds. I will have probably the alizarin crimson, in this case quinacridone rose, and the quinacridone sienna, or a red iron oxide. Any of these would do. So I'm going to look at this image and I'm going to say that underneath the whole thing is some blue, some yellows, and then back to some blues. So, as always, with the wet paper, there's moisture underneath the surface of this paper, so we need to use thicker paint that we normally would use. So I'm first going to go into a yellow ochre that is slowish moving. Oh, that might be, I might need to even be a little runnier than that. Now, the thing is, there's moisture in the paper, there's moisture underneath the paper, so any paint that I bring to it is going to include more moisture. So I have to be very careful, and this, against a white sheet, this is going to look rather strong. The other thing I like about this approach is that you can be very, very general. You don't have to be so detail-oriented. Now, the initial posting that I did on Facebook was a rather dark shot that I took that evening. And my friend Diane from Burlington sent me it looked darker like this. My friend sent me a more illuminated version that showed more of the detail in here. A bit more, the way she had photoshopped or adjusted the picture, it looked a bit more like maybe 15 minutes before this. I'm trying to get the look of when I was standing there. So now I just applied, there's moisture in the sheet, there's now yellow ochre moisture on top of the sheet. I'm going to apply a little bit of alizarin crimson down to about there. I'm going to give it up there. I'm going to pick it up around here. Because I'm always anxious to create a situation where, now this paper is getting very wet, and because we're on a 45-degree angle, it's drier up here than it is down there. So I'm trying to be mindful of that. Look how that's collecting. I might even have to spritz it with some water just to keep it moving. So I'm about a foot away and I'm creating little spots. So I'm going to go in with some blue, but I'm looking at this sheet of paper. Hello, Renee. I am wanting to look at the picture from the side so that I can see how wet it is. And then I might start moving in my blue. So mindful of the fact that this is very wet because the paper is saturated and I've been bringing water to it. I need to be very careful with the blues that I bring in. They have to be very slow moving, not there's already water there. Now, again, slow moving paint. Maybe a little bit of turquoise, just for the difference. Oh, Renee, I'm using an Escoda squirrel hair mop. The mop holds a lot of paint. Because it's a big brush. Now, you can see how this is. I'm going to add a bit more spray to this. From far away, not close, far away. I need to keep that surface wet. Now we have a big shape here. This is a very detailed object. And then it has a very detailed reflection. And then all these rocks. And then the bluffs in Dubuque. And the buildings and so on and so forth. I need to keep them very, very general for starters. I'm not going to get lost in all those little things. I need to think of this as one big shape. Oops. See that one big shape. So for Renee, here, I don't know if you can see the brush. The words have worn off, but it is a number 14 or 16 squirrel hair brush. So I am waiting, and then I have to mix up very slow moving paint. Ultramarine. More pigment, less water, because there's a lot of water right here. A little bit of red iron oxide, mostly the ultramarine blue. Not thinking about the boat yet. Let's put a bit of cerulean or cobalt turquoise in there. I'm looking for this shape. One big shape. Hello, Charles. Now, I can't make this exactly like the photograph, but I can get very generally like it. Down here, more ultramarine, thick paint, more transparent red iron oxide. Very slow moving paint. You see when I hold it straight, it doesn't move. It's not runny. Now, back here is darker. Red iron oxide, ultramarine blue. More blue. So you can get some cobalt in there. Right now I'm looking at that. I remember standing here that night, and it was so beautiful. And the light of this light only lasted a few minutes. It was wonderful. And I like to celebrate those moments. Maybe some of you the other night were able to see the effect of the coronal mass ejection from the sun. Even down here in the Middle West, we could see it. It was beautiful. It was stunning. I have a friend. She was recently in Iceland. She was hoping to see the Northern Lights. She didn't see them. And she comes back to Iowa and she sees them. How about that? So I'm taking advantage of the wet surface of this paper and this very thick paint, which doesn't move. You can see it's not moving. I'm sticking it right at, I squeezed it right out of the tube, and it's very fresh paint. So I am working into these areas. All those little lights, we're going to get those later. You don't worry about details. Devil is in the details. God is in the big shapes. The big pattern, the big plan. It's a little drier up here than it is down there. So I think I'm going to try and get away with putting in these smokestacks. Notice that one's a little taller than the other one because the the boat is at a bit of an angle to us. We can make this a little more specific later on. So I'm seeing where it's dark, I'm making darks. Where it's light, I'm making light. And hopefully, what I like about this approach of using the moist paper, it's letting me get very, very soft edges. Softer than I would get if I were working on a dry sheet. So I'm just trying to refine that shape a little bit. Putting a bit more of the red iron oxide into it, and I want to do some work down here where these rocks are, where I was standing. So you squint, close one eye and then close the other eye halfway, and you look for where are the big dark shapes. And it's that usual hierarchy. Where is it? How big is it? What shape is it? Very I'm rinsing my brush, blotting it off, putting it aside, and I think I'm going to get something a little stiffer. So this brush is the Oriental brush. The hair is stiffer than the hairs in this brush. It's about the same size, but it holds less paint, and the bristles themselves are stiffer. So I'm getting the same stiff mix. When what you can't see is when I get this in the brush, I can feel the stiffness of the paint. It's almost like an acrylic. So look at that flag. The name of this boat is the Twilight. It's an excursion boat. It may have at one time been a working river boat, but now they're just for tourist excursions. I'm being wobbly here because I want to kind of suggest the reflections. I don't think my reflection is dark enough, so I'm going to get some cerulean blue and mix into that. Stiff, see, it's not running. It sticks to the palette. Because it's drier up here and wetter down there, I can mix this paint. I'm going to get a little bit of turquoise as well. My friend Diane noticed that there was a lot of turquoise in this. And that's probably why I was attracted to it, because I think I have a turquoise fixation. The lovely thing about a reflection is it's irregular. It's not like the thing that is causing it. And you have lots of room to play around with its shape. You don't have to be as specific as you do when you're maybe doing the shapes up top. So you can see it's drier up here. When I put marks up here, it doesn't matter. Yeah, they're staying as is. Whereas down here, they're melting into the wetter paper. So this is thick paint into a moist surface. There's a flag on this boat there. Okay, what's going on back here? Now, there are a lot of interesting little gewgaws, details, gewgaws. I call them gewgaws, they're details. So I'm going to get a stiffer brush. Oh, let's see, what do we grab? This is a nylon brush. It's shorter. Compare it to the one we've been using up to this point. You can see it's a little smaller and the hairs are stiffer. It doesn't carry as much paint. Ultramarine blue, transparent red iron oxide. I'm looking at these strong darks, mindful of the fact that the upper portions of this sheet are drier than the lower portions. So not worrying about all those little lights and things. Those are going to happen later. We're going to do that with gouache. Ultramarine blue, red iron oxide. More ultramarine blue. Well, if it's too brown, I will use that up here. So I mentioned earlier that this is a blue, yellow, dull red kind of palette for this painting, or blue and orange. Yellow ochre is an orangey yellow, but it's subdued. It's not very saturated. Red iron oxide is kind of an orange, but very subdued. Now, for the very, very dark of that hull, I'm going to need to mix some ultramarine blue and that red iron oxide together. So I'm mixing a dull orange and a high chroma blue. Very dark in here. And there's a kind of a gangplank leading off of the boat where you board it. And there's a marina over here, which there were some wonderful painting subjects in that area as well that weekend. Managed to get one of my favorite paintings I've ever done right from that area. I'm putting a bit of turquoise into this mix. Again, a slow moving mix, almost an acrylic-like consistency. Now there's no getting around it. We gotta buckle down and we gotta do the stuff in this area here. Ultramarine blue or cobalt or cerulean and a little bit of red iron oxide. Very slow moving again. Doing what would have been back in the day smokestacks, because this would have been a steamboat. This is the cabin where the captain would have been controlling the boat. But it's a shape. We look at the shapes. It's a brush. It will not make a boat. It will not make a nose. It will not make a tree. It will not make a person. It will only make brush strokes. So we have to consider what brushstroke looks like the thing that we are trying to make. Paddle wheel would have been in there somewhere back in times when this was a steam-powered boat. Notice the angle of and there is a shape which I think is supposed to be the letter T, because the boat is called the Twilight. But it does have, because it's a modern boat, or it has to navigate in modern times, it has to have electronics. I wanted to call them avionics, but that's for airplanes. I'm not sure what the nautical term would be. So what I'm trying to do, not sure I'm actually making it happen, I'm trying to leave this lighter blue to indicate what my friend Diane had showed me when she modified the photo. So that you could see the light of the boat, or the reflected light into the boat. So I'm just looking for shapes. Where are they? How big are they? What shape are they? Now, when you do a subject like this, you want to make a decision. I probably should have mentioned this early on. You want to make a decision. Am I trying to show detail of a thing, or am I trying to create mood? Now, me, every time I'm going to go for the mood. I'm a moody kind of guy. It's just how I roll. I want to get the feeling of when I was standing there and I was talking to somebody on the phone, trying to share with them just how cool this looked. So I'm not going to go so much for the detail of all the little posts and windows and archways and whatever. I'm going to try to get the color, the contrast, the whatever I can get to create how I felt when I was standing right there. That to me is the most important thing. I had a feeling when I was there. It moved me. So I'm making wobbly strokes down here because the reflections are not going to be as distinct or pure as the areas here. Now, I'm not worried if I overshoot the mark on some of these because I can recover them with lifts, and we're going to do that. It's actually getting very dry, so I am going to take my spray and I'm going to moisten the whole surface by going a distance from it. One always has to be aware of how dry or how moist or not moist an area is when one is working on it. And the oil painter doesn't have to worry about that sort of thing. But we do. We have to be aware of our surface. So now it's very dry up here, so I can take advantage of this and I can do some dry brush strokes. Using my brush on the side and pulling. squinting, squinting, squinting. What do I see? Or not see? Very dry down here. I can make some interesting strokes if I want. So let's take advantage of this situation. I'm going to get some of that Holbein lavender because it's very much a color, the slow-moving version of it. It's very much a color that is like reflected light on a white surface, because the boat, if you could see it during the day, is white. But at this time of night, let's mix some ultramarine into it, a little bit of red iron oxide. At this time of night, blue or white looks very bluish. So I don't know, I should probably spritz that. Strong darks. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to set up and do anything interesting to it, what am I, oh my goodness. I need a bluish dark in here. My goodness. Look at that. Starting to get there, starting to get there. Now, I'm going to get the, hi Carol, I'm going to get the Holbein Jaune Brilliant number 1. It's basically titanium white and yellow ochre. And I'm going to get a very pointy, stiff brush. And I'm going to stick right into the tube. Some of these little lights. In the town of Dubuque. Beautiful town. On the Mississippi River. These are accents, these are sort of jewelry. I still think I need to make a little bit more. I'm going to put some cerulean into this mix. And create some stuff in here. I'm just looking for where do I think I see it. Now I'm going to do some lifting. So I wanted to show you what goes on with the lifting. Here we go. Thank you, Carol. Here's our dry sheet of paper. Here's when we apply water. Some of the water soaks into the paper. Water is on the top, the pigment's floating. But we've been working with a situation like this. The water is kind of below the surface of the sheet, and the pigment is on top, and it's not quite dry. It's a little bit loose. So that means we can do things with it. So I'm looking at this stuff. There's all kinds of in the cabin here, where the person who drives the boat. And again, these are probably electronics that would not have existed when the boat was originally manufactured. Make a little more of the front. There's a gangplank sort of thing happening along here. And these posts, you can see where the dark is sticking up over the light area. I'm going to take a stiff flat brush, pure water, and I'm going to lift out straight lines like that, because we've been using very thick pigment. And I can correct areas like this, or I can put in, I hesitate to call them porch posts, but they're like that. There's a gangplank sort of thing where you board the boat here. And there are a couple of things that lift it up so that when they go down the river, it doesn't stick out. There's a railing here. There's a area there. There's a light area there. This is a damp brush, just water in it. Needs to be something back there. I could put some, doing the same thing, I could put some little ripples in the water. At this point, I think I want to pull some of the tape off and see what I'm creating. Okay. Well, you get these little bleeds. Can't help that. I'm going to get a piece of tape to hold the top down. I'm learning this. I am really enjoying learning how to use a wet sheet of paper. The edges are not going to be perfect. Some of the moisture will soak under the edge. But I hope I have gotten a mood that reminds me of what I remember when I was there. And I think I want to take that brush that I was doing the lifting with, using the clear water, and I want to do some lifts down there. The reason we can do this is because we have used very thick paint, and it's sitting on the surface, and it's not yet quite dry. So we can do things like this. We can also, yeah, that's a very good question, Renee. It's, gosh, you know, it's up to each particular artist. Do I want to have lots of windows or those areas? Do I want to have less windows? It's very important to make the decision that am I after the mood or am I after describing the object? I'm always going to be the person who goes for the mood. That's just me. That's how it felt when I was there. I didn't really care about the windows or how many there were. I want enough to make it obvious what kind of object this is. But at the same time, I want to get that nighttime mood. I want to get maybe some of that. And I may need to just wet it. Yes, I am a romantic. Shamelessly romantic. I like my romance. But I need these rocks to be a little more solid because they are closer to me. Than the boat. So I always want to ride the ragged edge of where, yeah, you can tell what it is, but the mood is the thing that I have going on. So hopefully this gets close to that. I'm learning this technique. I think it's definitely something worth knowing how to do, and I'm hell-bent on getting good at it. If I can. Look at this. You can loosen up this paint and then go. You want to have a clean edge Not that that's a big deal. The mat would cover that anyway. But let's see, what else can I do? Oh yeah, look, there ought to be a little line through here. And get that. There are more windows back there. Do I want to put them in? I don't know. I want the ones up front more than I want the ones that are further away, because that will help me show that this end is closer to me than that end. And I probably could have used a lot of different blues. I know when you look at this on your screens, you're going to see different colors than I'm seeing. So, gosh, that's the beauty of being a painter. There's more ways to get this right than there is to get it wrong. So, that's why we love to paint. So, yes, it was definitely at dusk. Let's see what the timestamp says. 7:05 p.m. on October 2nd. Oh, go away. There we go. Anyhow, I think I want to get a little more detail. There is a Corps of Engineers has a area back here. One more little. I want one more light up here. I don't want as many lights over here as I have over here. And I do want it to be a little more sunset over here, because that's looking west. Okay. So that's that. Anyhow. Thank you, Renee. Yes, it's always white knuckles, isn't it? We never know if it's going to come out. That's kind of the joy of watercolor. There's this, it's almost like cooking. Is this going to taste good or not? But that's the beauty of it. So thank you, everyone. I am going to pick up a friend, and then we're going to head on over to see the Small Work Show at Art Domestique in Washington, Iowa. And I'm looking forward to that. If you can get there, definitely do that. So, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in early. Everybody stay safe, stay sane. Peace out.